Feel for philosophy. Feel the thought, think the feeling.
Welcome to my new discussion on the major branches of psychology. Today, we explore some important branches of this psychology. These are developmental psychology, social psychology, personality psychology, etc., presented by Feel for Philosophy.
You ever just stop and think about the big questions? And, the small ones too. Why we do the things we do? Well, today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to sift through a ton of research to create a simple but really powerful map of the entire complex world of psychology.
Like, why do we fall in love?
Or why do we get so angry sometimes? And maybe the biggest mystery of all, why on earth do we wander over to the fridge in the middle of the night, open it, stare inside, knowing full well we're not even hungry, right? These are the kinds of questions that really get to the heart of what makes us human. Okay, so let's dive right in. To get our heads around this huge landscape of the human mind, we need a map. We're not trying to chart every little trail, but we do want to understand the fundamental layout of the entire world of psychology. And the simplest way to draw this map is to just split it right down the middle into two giant hemispheres. Think of this as the main divide that's going to organize everything else we talk about. So on one side, you've got basic psychology. Its whole goal is to build our knowledge base. It's always asking that fundamental question, why? Why do people think, feel, and act the way they do? Then on the other side, you have applied psychology. This side takes all that knowledge and asks, okay, so what can we do with this stuff to solve actual real-world problems? Now, what's really cool is that they're in a constant conversation. A real-life problem often kicks off a whole new area of research. So let's start with that foundation. We're going to head into that first hemisphere of our map, the part that's all about exploring that big question, why? And to really get the why, you have to start with our physical hardware, the brain and the body. This is the world of biological psychology. It basically works on the idea that everything we think and feel has a physical root. It's in our genes, our hormones, the very wiring of our brain. All of it shaped by millions of years of evolution. Now, speaking of the brain, there is this super popular idea out there, I'm sure you've heard it, the one that says we only use about 10% of our brain's capacity. So, is that true? Yeah, no, it's a total myth. It's a great idea for a movie, but it's just not true. The reality is we use pretty much all of our brain, just not always at the exact same second. I mean, you look at brain scans, and even when we're doing simple stuff, different areas are just lighting up with activity. It's amazing. It shows how different parts have their own special jobs. Your frontal lobe is your decision maker. The parietal lobe is processing things like touch. Your temporal lobe handles hearing and language. And way in the back, the occipital lobe is all about vision. They're all working together like this incredible coordinated symphony. Okay, so our hardware is running at full capacity, but what about the software running on it? Our thoughts, our memories, how we make decisions. This brings us to cognitive psychology. This branch basically sees the human mind as a really sophisticated information processor, kind of like a computer. A fantastic example of this is prospect theory from the brilliant Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They used a super simple choice to show something really profound about us. So, look at this. What would you pick? Option A, you get $50 guaranteed. Or option B, we flip a coin. Heads, you get $100. Tails, you get nothing. Now, if you do the math, both options are technically worth the same over time. So, what do people actually do? Well, it's not even close. About 80% of us take the sure thing, the guaranteed $50. We just love certainty. But that leads to a really interesting question. Why? Why do we play it safe when the gamble is mathematically just as good? This was Kahneman and Tversky's genius insight. We're not just rational calculators. It's not about the math, it's about how it feels. And the key takeaway is this. The emotional sting of losing something feels way, way more powerful than the joy of gaining the exact same amount. We are fundamentally wired to avoid loss. And that simple idea has huge effects on everything from how we invest our money to how governments make policy. But of course, our minds aren't just floating in space. Our environment is constantly shaping who we are. And that brings us to another key branch, behaviorism. The core idea here is that our actions are mostly the result of what we learn from our experiences. And the most famous, and let's be honest, pretty controversial example is the Little Albert experiment. A researcher, John Watson, showed a 9-month-old baby a cute white rat. The baby wasn't scared at all. But then, every time the rat appeared, Watson would slam a hammer on a steel bar, making this horrible, loud noise. And you can guess what happened. Pretty soon, just seeing the rat, or really anything white and fluffy, was enough to make little Albert cry. It's a chilling example of learned fear. And that idea connects perfectly to other foundational fields. You've got developmental psychology, which looks at how we grow and change our whole lives, from birth to death. Then there's social psychology, which explores how groups and culture influence us. And of course, personality psychology, which asks why we have these consistent traits. They use models like the Big Five to map our personalities, basically asking, are you more open to new things or do you prefer routine? Are you conscientious or more spontaneous? An extrovert or an introvert? Agreeable or competitive? And are you generally anxious or pretty stable emotionally? All right, so that's a whirlwind tour of the why. We've got our foundation. Now let's flip over to the other hemisphere of our map and see how all this knowledge actually gets put to work. It's time to explore the how. The application most of us think of first is probably mental health treatment. And here we hear two terms a lot, clinical and counseling psychology. They sound really similar, but their roots and what they focus on are actually a bit different. The word clinical comes from the Greek klein, which means bed. That reflects its history of focusing on severe mental illnesses, often treated in a hospital bed setting. Counseling, on the other hand, comes from the Latin consolare, which means to advise. And that field typically helps people navigate life's challenges, things like relationship problems or career stress, in places like universities or community centers. But psychology's reach goes so far beyond therapy. Just look at the workplace. Industrial organizational psychology, or IO psychology, studies how to make work better for everyone. And get this, research by a psychologist named Anita Woolley found something incredible. She discovered that a team's success doesn't really depend on how smart its individual members are. It depends on its collective intelligence, basically how well the group works together. And here's the kicker. She found that this collective smarts goes way up when a team has more women. Why? Mostly because of higher levels of social sensitivity. So, a team with better gender balance is literally a smarter team. And these applications just pop up everywhere. Forensic psychology takes these ideas into the courtroom, helping figure out if a witness is reliable. Health psychology dives into that powerful mind-body connection, showing how something like chronic stress can physically weaken our immune system. Sports psychology helps athletes use things like visualization to get over mental blocks. And environmental psychology studies how our physical spaces affect us, like how just having access to a park in a city can actually reduce anxiety. So now we can kind of zoom out and see the whole map. We've got the foundational why on one side and the practical how on the other. But the most important thing to see is how they're connected. These different branches don't live in their own little bubbles. It's more like a hub-and-spoke model, where theory and practice are constantly feeding each other. A therapist out in the field might notice a new pattern of anxiety, and that could spark a whole new line of basic research. And a new discovery in a neuroscience lab could lead to a totally new kind of therapy. It's a two-way street. You really can't have one without the other. For centuries, psychology has studied the mind as this biological and social thing. But now we're in an age where our identities, our relationships, even our thoughts are merging with this digital world of AI and virtual reality. So that leaves us with this final, kind of mind-bending question. As more and more of our mind begins to live on the cloud or on a screen, what is the architecture of this new cyber mind going to look like? And that might just be the biggest puzzle for the next generation of psychologists to solve.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support encourages me to create more content. Thank you.